Any further discussion on the request to postpone consideration? All right. On the motion to postpone consideration of line item number 23 until after line item number 101, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carried. Okay. We are now up to line item number 24.
Mr. Moderator, I move
Mr. Daly.
I move to appropriate the sum of $1,131,927 as printed in the sponsor, for line number 24, as printed in the sponsor recommends column, with any noted transfers as printed in the warrant.
You've heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation, Mrs. Belmonte? Mrs. Holsing.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. O'Brien.
I'd like to ask the salary of the head of the department, whether the evaluation is taking place, what is proposed for an increase, and how that was arrived at.
Mr. Daly.
Excuse me. I don't mean to pick on anybody. I'm looking for numbers for town meeting and going down. I'm supposed to ask for not paid qualifiers.
Mr. Daly.
Mr. Moderator, was the first part of that question, what is the salary?
Correct.
The salary appropriation would, in this case, would be $56,901. There is not a performance review that has been done that would determine any increase to that salary, and therefore there is no increase amount that is specified or contemplated at this point in time. That is the case with all of our department heads at this point in time.
Follow up, please.
Mr. O'Brien.
Do you propose a review of the law?
Absolutely.
Mr. Sandorfi.
Mr. Moderator, if I remember correctly, the compensation of the police chief and fire chief by law are tied to the lowest paid employee or patrolman salary. Inasmuch as we have not negotiated these contracts, how can we specify the chief's salary at this time?
Mr. Daly.
Okay. Mr. Moderator, the answer to Mr. Sandorfi's question is that his understanding of that attachment to police officer's salary for the chief is the way that it used to be up until not long ago, where the chiefs who had that tie remained in that situation, where their salary was determined by an increment above the officers paid in their department. That is no longer the case under law, and the chiefs that we have are not under that particular statute. So ours are not tied to those salaries.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion, which is for $1,131,927 to fund line item number 24. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Line item 25. Mr. Daly.
Mr. Moderator, I move to appropriate the sum of $101,234,000 for line number 25 as printed in the sponsor recommends column, with any noted transfers as printed in the warrant.
The motion is for $101,234. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Daly. All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Line item 26. Mr. Daly.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Daly.
Thank you. I move to appropriate the sum of $1,062,519 for line number... Excuse me.
That does not sound right, Mr. Daly.
It isn't right. Pardon me. Mr. Moderator, I move to appropriate the sum of $983,119. That's 983,119 for line number 26, as printed in the FinCom recommends column, with any noted transfers as printed in the warrant.
You have heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. O'Brien.
Moderator, I like that same question. The salary of the head of the department, please. And also, another question concerning the ambulance revenue. Is it coming in that well? Do we have this kind of money? So in the past,
Mr. Daly.
In response to the first part of the question, that series of three questions, the current salary is $56,855. There has not been a performance review done. There will be one done, and there is no money established for an increase at this point. With regard to the ambulance revenues, yes, our ambulance revenues are coming in very well on a collection basis. We do a third-party billing process where a company actually takes the payments on the bills that we send out, and they actually do the billing to the insurers. They take those payments, they apply them directly to the, they deposit them directly into the town's bank accounts, and they do follow-up for the unpaid balance. I believe it's 1 or 2 times, and then our finance director takes the bills from there and uses another process in an attempt to collect the entire amount due.
Mr.
you're saying we have a collection agency.
We have a billing, and it's not really a collection agency. It's a billing agency that bills to the third parties and to individuals, and when those bills are paid, they deposit the amount in the town's accounts and record those payments. If a bill isn't fully paid, they turn the balance due over to us, and we use another technique which falls short of a collection agency, because we have a deputy collector that we can use to collect any outstanding amounts after we've gone through the second process. The second process is one where we send a series of letters reminding people that they still owe a certain amount of money to the town, and we encourage them to pay before we send it off to collection, and they have to pay more. We pay $12 per bill. Our bills are in the range of about $230 each.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. The motion is for $983,119 for line item number 26, as printed in the FinCom recommendation column in the warrant, with the noted transfers as printed in the warrant. On the motion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Line item 27, Mr. Daly.
Mr. Moderator, I move to appropriate the sum of $79,400 for line number 27 as printed in the FinCom recommends column, with any noted transfers as printed in the warrant.
You've heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mrs. Holsing.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Line item 27. Mr. Daly, pardon me, line item 28. Mr. Daly.
Mr. Moderator, I move to appropriate the sum of $2,000 for line number 28 as printed in the Sponsor Recommends column, with any noted transfers as printed in the warrant.
You've heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mrs. Holsing.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in... Lady in the center section, please state your name and address.
Penny Richards, 15 Leland Road. Could somebody please explain to me exactly what this is for? Thank you.
Mr. Daly, could you explain to Ms. Richards what this is for?
Yes, I will. We have a civil defense operation within our government, and we run it out of our public safety division. What this appropriation does is it pays our civil defense director, I believe it's $350 a year, and then it provides for other expenses that are involved with the auxiliary police and the training of those people, as well as some of the expenses for equipment, etc., that they might incur. One of the things that everybody should realize is that our civil defense director headed up our effort to obtain reimbursement from the Federal Emergency Management Association after Hurricane Bob last year, and I believe that we collected something in the order of $38,000 on his initiative. And certainly this is an investment that's come back to us many times over.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion for $2,000 for line item number 28. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Line item 29. Mr. Daly.
Mr. Moderator, I move to appropriate the sum of $81,264 for line number 29, as printed in the Sponsor Recommends column, with any noted transfers as printed in the warrant.
You've heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mrs. Holsing.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Daly. No. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Line item number 30.
Mr. Moderator, I move to appropriate the sum of $9,312 for line number 30 as printed in the Sponsor Recommends column, with any noted transfers as printed in the warrant.
You've heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mrs. Holsing.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Daly.
Mr. Moderator, I move to appropriate the sum of $42,678 for line number 31 as printed in the Sponsor Recommends column, with any noted transfers as printed in the warrant.
You've heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing Mrs. Belmonte.
Mr. Moderator, in the beginning of the budget, the Finance Committee felt that there should be a full-time agent in this town. We have been told by Town Council that there is a ruling that we can put the money in there, but the Board of Health has the authority to hire the health agent, and whatever they wish to do is what they wish to do. We feel that at this time we have been told that they want a half-time health agent, so instead we are putting the money back into the expenses so that we will have the consultant fees there for the restaurant inspections. Finance Committee is sorry for any inconvenience, but we felt that this is one place where we should have more help.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion of $42,678 for line item number 31. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Daly. Line item 32.
Mr. Moderator, I move to appropriate the sum of $78,010 for line number 32 as printed in the Sponsor Recommends column, with any noted transfers as printed in the warrant.
You've heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mrs. Belmonte.
Finance Committee recommends.
Is there any further discussion? Gentlemen in the center, please state your name and address.
Ed McGrath, Ames Street. I understand this is where the mosquito